friends, and hopefully welcome. Yeah, just let me do some things. Setting it up. So basically what's happening is that some friends were interested, so I was like, oh, why not? So let me actually give you the window capture so you can see. Okay, Google, and now let me find the link. And yeah, so there's so many events today, friends. So basically I will be covering this stuff. Okay, and now I need to find the link to log in. And yeah, I think actually, so that's register, but I think I can just join. Okay, I think I can just join. And yeah, 1 second, I will just oh, okay, so it's not visible yet. That's okay. That's actually as I wanted. Oh no, it's not as I wanted. That's OBS thing, it's killing me. So now we're logged in. Now let's see. So it's things I work at Meetup. That's interesting. That's very different from what I expected. That's not exactly the warm welcome I wanted. All I wanted was just to click the link and see some streaming. So something like this. So let me see, login. Sign in with Facebook. Okay, so something like this. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I will be showing a very short amount of time. Just bear with me. And yes, I'm autistic, and yes, I love this stuff. I love finance. Well, I love open source. Well, I love people. That's true. And currently, the best way to help people is to because the world is in the state it is in. And a lot of people don't have jobs and such. And what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to find opportunities for them. And actually not find, I don't like being passive. I like controlling the situation. Even if I drive a car, I would prefer to control the situation. I would prefer to take some line, because I know that if I don't do it, that somebody aggressive will get there and people might die. So I would rather take the line and drive safely and nicely. So giving example to others. And that's weird, but it actually works. That's a very weird approach, right? So if I share my window capture again, so it will be this one. So and I make it visible. Yeah, so this is this foundation thing. So yeah, let's see what's going on. So there's a keynote. For God's sake, I've said this thing, this password thing, I've said it already. Like, breathe. Don't be this person who is like angry and stuff and creating things. So now I will first of all, I need to go back to my channel so I can see what it looks like for you, because I have, well, okay, there are not too many people watching. So hi, oh, Arindram, yes, so I'm great. Trying to figure it out. I'm just typing. So I'm just trying to figure out how to log in and stuff like that. And let me see. So how do I watch it? I thought it's expected to be like streamed live. Now how I do it? The virtual one. Is it even? Are they even streaming? Okay, not the breakfast thing. But like this one. Let's say I want to see it, right? Let's say I want to watch it. And now your account doesn't have a password. That's not something I like to see. Let's fix that. One moment. We'll just create a password. Something nice. Okay. Continue. Oh. Okay. So it actually has a password, so I already had the passwords. It's just this piece of stuff. It's yeah. So what I'm trying to do now is to, because this thing is lying to me, I actually had a password. Yeah, so that's the event. When it takes so much time for just the event, just to log in, that I have questions. Starting with your DevRels. Okay. Now that's another one. North America, United States. That's the one. So I'm logged in, right? I'm logged in, and let's see. So I've already registered. I don't know what this thing is. Oh, finally. Can it be that easy? Please tell me there's a stream, please. Like, please tell me there's a stream and I don't need to click 20 more buttons. This is 5 years ago. Do they have anything live? Dear Linux Foundations, it would be really nice if you hired few more DevOps who could make this stuff actually useful. I can see there's a huge potential. You've done so much, but we really need to speak because you really need help here. This is like, all I'm trying to do is to have a button here which is live and watch your videos. Watch your videos. I'm really trying to do it, and if I'm struggling with it, then there's a lot of people who already closed their laptops. There's a lot of people who already closed their streaming devices, and maybe they will never open it again. And the whole point of Linux being there is to be open for a community, not like it is now. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe it won't be streamed. I don't know. Yesterday I was under the impression that there's a virtual ticket. Okay. Attend. Code of conduct. Live stream. Yes. It just took me that much to get to the live stream. Okay. UTC -5. So what that's now? Okay. So if I do that on another screen, actually here, actually here, actually here. So oh, in the shed. Yeah, let me try shed. I've already found another link as well, so let's see. You have signed up for the live stream. Thank you very much. Now, and I'm in, and there's live stream access page. I might have done it already, but yeah, who cares? And finally, we are in. I'm living the dream. Yeah, so currently I'm trying to find how to add sound, okay? Because, yeah, I know, mate. I'm working on it.
Your organizational maturity when it comes to open source across many different dimensions, from strategy to management to consumption. It
I
is a
hope it's
service,
better now.
it's online, it's free.
I hope you can hear me.
We would like to start building not only a base that can help your organization grow, meaning not only will assess where you are, but also recommend how can you move forward, but really a better picture of where the industry is as far as maturity goes. So you got the cute QR code there. You can point to it, take the survey right now. I want to switch gears here, and I'm definitely going long, so let me switch to a fast gear. A trend that I'm seeing this year is that finally we're seeing fintechs waking up to this idea of commercial open source, or using open source as part of the go-to-market and business model. The article on the left is from Andreessen Horowitz. If you haven't read it, I suggest you take a look. I'm glad they finally aligned to the message. But really, this is an important element because we need their participation and even their commercialization of our open source projects to really create the virtuous cycle. You know, we start from project, we have commercial entities commercializing it, and largely if they're based on our projects, they will likely reinvest in growing our community, whether it's by developer time or contributions. And look, don't get me wrong, there are some examples of companies that are starting this way. I personally am involved in a few of them. And it's exciting. I think there's a huge potential to really start creating building blocks that are not just available in the open, but they provide professional support. And on this, I think one of the main factors, though, that I want you to be aware is the concept of open washing. How many of you know the word open washing? Yeah, not that many. So I keep seeing in the industry a conflation of the word open. There's open banking, open finance. They're very appropriate uses of that word, don't get me wrong. But I continue to see the word open source being overloaded in a way that really has nothing to do with open source. And I think one of the roles as a foundation that we can play is making sure that for you as consumers, we are a trusted entity where you know that if something is in FINOSS, is truly open source, is an under open source license, is developed under an open governance. Which brings me to my next presenter, which is our senior technical architect, Rob Moffat, who's actually going to talk what we are doing in such a mature standard like FDC3 and what roles Foundation can play for you. Welcome, Rob. Please.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, it's really exciting here to be stood here in New York and to tell you I've got two interesting pieces of news on FDC3. So I'm going to give you a quick recap, but it sounds like pretty much everyone knows what this is. FDC3 is a standard for desktop interop. So if you're a trader, you might have a whole bunch of apps. You want all those apps to work together, so you can say, show me a graph of this stock and move from one app to another. And this is what FDC3 solves. So this slide here shows the basic parts. We've got the spec on the left. And in London, we announced the new version of the FDC3 spec, which is 2.0, so we have two versions of that. We have various vendors providing desktop agents, which kind of act as the postman between all the different apps that I've talked about. And there are various vendors, and we also have FDC3 Sail now, which is a FINOSS project, which is an open source desktop agent. And we have app directories as well, and the apps. And an app directory being like a collection of apps that you're going to use. So there's a lot of bits of the puzzle here. There's a lot going on. And one of the problems that people have is, how do you keep these things in line? How do you know that everyone's going to build stuff that works across this suite? And so, as a user, you want to know that if you're using an app, it's going to work in your desktop agent. Or if you're an app writer, you want to know that it's going to work on all the different desktop agents. And again, we've got different versions of the spec. Do you know it's going to work on the different versions of the spec? So how do we solve this problem? How do we align all these together? So we've been working hard on the FDC3, 1.2 and 2.0 desktop agent conformance programs. We announced them in the summer. And today, I'm really pleased to say that, 5 months later, we actually have the first 1.2 conforming desktop agents. And we're going to announce those later on today in the awards part of the program. But the way this works is that effectively, the conformance program is a suite of apps that talk to each other and sort of exercise that whole part of the stack. So yes, we're also very close to having 2.0 conformance testing working. We'll be looking at that at the start of 2023. So second bit of news I want to talk about is the FINOSS FDC3 app directory. So this is something, as I said on the previous slide, there's lots of different app directories out there. Every different installation of FDC3 is a different directory. And what we wanted to do is provide a common one, a place where people can start. And to fill this gap, we've created directory.fdc3.finos.org. And this is kind of a seed, if you like. We want to try and get a collection of apps together, put them in the open, and allow people to use them. So at the moment, we have ChartIQ, Symfony, Next.J, Connectify, Adaptable, and obviously the FDC3 conformance framework. We've got all of those in the FINOSS App Store. So yeah, check it out. You can write a PR if you have an app you want to add. We're hoping that this will act as a seed and people will start to contribute apps, maybe from behind their firewalls. We'll get some apps from some of the big FDC3 users out there. And yes, if you want to see this in action, just to plug a talk today, Nick Kolber and Seb Mbarak will be doing a presentation of the FINOSS FDC3 Sail desktop agent later on today at 3:15, and that actually uses the FINOSS app directory to provide all its apps. So it all joins together. So yeah, please come along to that. And yes, I think that's basically it. Those two things, directory and conformance. Thank you very much. Back to you, Gab.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, so you gotta stick with us until the end of the day to know who is actually certified. Suspense. And so before I wrap, with 15 seconds left, what's on the horizon? What are we looking forward to besides continuing investing on, supply chain security and providing the highest standards of security and compliance to our projects. We're not oblivious to the fact that we want to produce financial services grade open source. I think there's a lot for us to do. First of all, we continue to expand globally. You've seen our logos. We think there's a huge potential for open source to build bridges, not only within the United States, but of course across the different regions. I recently have taken a second role as the General Manager of Linux Foundation Europe. So if you are interested in collaborating across the Atlantic, this is a really great place to do so. I talked about the importance of creating a commercial ecosystem or fostering an open source, open core, SaaS, services, whatever business model you have that is based on open source, because this is going to drastically accelerate our growth and the support that many organizations that are maybe not ready just yet to consume open source directly can interact. This is a huge opportunity for all of you here, whether you are a services company, a vendor company, a fintech company. There's a first mover advantage here. This is just at the beginning. And then finally, we'll hear it more later in the day, but we're starting to really onboard projects that can make a drastic change, as I said, not only at IT level, but truly as to how this industry, the very functioning of this industry. Last year, we announced an open digital currency initiative that we'll be following up on this year. Of course, the CDM onboarding, that is something that touches across the board. And again, with my Linux Foundation hat on, we're seeing even collaborations that are across industries. The Open Wallet Foundation is bringing together not only finance, but automotive, healthcare. This is the convening power that we can, put at your disposal with FINOSS and the Linux Foundation. So I think it's going to be exciting, but it's going to be depending on you and your contributions. So as we look to today, there's something for everyone. I'm actually very excited that this year we have an OpenJS in finance track with some amazing speakers from our sister foundation, OpenJS. We have FTC3Con and so many other great, hopefully inputs for your 2023. We have a roundtable for our OSPO folks. Talk to James McLeod, our Director of Community, if you'd like to be involved. Stick around for the awards and for the closing reception. And yes, we do have an after party. And I know some of you have received some unofficial invitation. This is the one and only FINOSS after party. So make sure that you stick around or that you register to actually show up. As I wrap, full 3 minutes late. This is the slide that I showed in London 3 months ago. July, I guess. It all starts from you. But it struck me that it's not just about you sharing your opinions today and you sharing where do you want this community to go. But open source gives you a way to actually turn those opinions into actions. Raise an issue, raise a pull request, even if it's not code. Your input in terms of use cases and strategies and areas that are a priority for you next year will greatly help to focus our direction and, in turn deliver more value back to you. So thank you so much. I hope you'll have a great time today, and let me bring in the next speakers. So I want to bring on stage Hillary Carter, who runs the research at the Linux Foundation, Colin Heberert, the CTO at Scott Logic, and our head of TSC. Please, guys, come in. I'm going to slightly move away. Welcome. Welcome. We have Cara Delia from Red Hat and Penny Crossman who agreed to run this panel for us. Thank you.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Ёлки, я закрыл вот это окно.
This really does seem like a fun crowd, a fun topic. Gabriel did a great job of giving some of the highlights of this research that these three experts all helped guide, I would say, and were a part of. They surveyed people who work in financial services, and I think some tech companies that work with banks as well. They got more than 250 responses. So the research paints a really good picture of the state of open source in finance, as you can see. So we're going to talk about some of the points that came out of the research and what these experts think. So these are all people who work with banks and are very, very knowledgeable about how these projects are going. So I just want to ask each of you if you could talk about like one project or one type of project that you've either been personally involved in or that you know of that you think is kind of a game changer in the way that open source is being used in financial services, and the way it's kind of, I don't know, making a difference. Hillary, maybe we could start with you.
Sure. I'm super excited about FDC3, the project we just heard Rob speaking about. I've had the opportunity to work in the financial services sector for 10 years and be on the front lines of some of those pain points around the lack of interoperability across applications. And what is extremely exciting is the problem that FDC is solving for, FDC3. And what I love is the opportunity for open source solutions to be born within a given industry, but have applicability beyond the industry, and that's what I see for FDC3 is transportability to other industries. And of course, I'm incredibly excited about the possibilities. I think we're just getting started to see opportunities for digital wallets, digital asset custody, and central bank digital currency and digital identity. Like, we are just getting started. So I think I'm excited for the future.
So what's like a key benefit so if I'm a CFO at a bank, why do I care about FDC3?
Well, there is latency in the lack of interoperability in data, and time is money. And financial services, their objective is to turn a profit for shareholders, to create shareholder value, to define themselves by better trading systems, better investment management, and creating value for clients and shareholders alike. That comes through better technologies and more reliable and more timely access to accurate information. So it's directly linked to ROI.
Okay. Scott, can you give a project or a type of project that you think is sort of game changing?
Sure, yeah, it's Colin.
Sorry.
I get that all the time. Yeah.
I was afraid I was going to do that.
Yeah,
and I
no
didn't.
problem.
Sorry.
Rather than focus on a project, I'll focus on something slightly different. So we've been involved in a lot of different FINOSS projects: View, Perspective, KDB. We wrote the FDC3 conformance framework, so I know which 3 pass. Buy me a drink and I'll let you know. Although that kind of implies I drink during the day, which is probably not a good thing to say. One of the things I've been doing recently with FINOSS is putting together the technical steering committee. And from my perspective, that's a real sort of milestone in terms of the maturing of FINOSS as an organisation. At early stages, one of the key metrics of FINOSS was just the sheer number of projects that sit within the organisation. Now it's got to a point where it's attracting a considerable number of potential contributions and projects, and there's a genuine need to have a bit more curation to make sure things are more cohesive, to make sure they genuinely deliver value. So I think from my perspective, that's one of the most interesting things I've been involved in this year.
How about you, Kara?
I would say the most unique piece to FINOSS is our open source readiness SIG. And in open source, there are many times of how do you get involved, especially if you're not necessarily a technical contributor. So the open source readiness SIG is a great opportunity to be able to come, understand open source, learn from other OSPOs, learn from other open source leaders. In addition, it helps with the creating of your strategies and even getting started on your strategy. It's a nice entry point, especially into FINOSS and into open source, especially if you're a financial services firm.
Okay, so the research found that 87% of respondents feel that open source is valuable to the future of the financial services industry, and you've all given examples of some of the value that you're currently seeing is there anything open source will be able to do to kind of help banks, continue to modernize and, maybe, compete going into the future? Do any of you want to, Hillary?
I can take a stab, sure. I think, the value proposition for open source in financial services is unquestionable, from a lowering the total cost of ownership of your technology stack, reducing vendor lock-in. But one of the unheralded benefits of open source for this sector relates to talent retention. Our people are our competitive advantage, and when we empower our staff to create through open source project communities and to build value, we help attract talent, we help retain that talent. And so I think the talent equation is incredibly important as to why open source is so significant a factor for success in the industry.
I guess I'm going to come at the question from a slightly different direction. I guess what you're looking at is the value proposition for open source. And I think you're going to hear that over and over again in the talks today, that the value proposition is something that people here deeply care about. And that's kind of the carrot. That's the positive motivator. There's also the stick as well. Around about 80 to 90% of all software is now open source. So pretty much everything that banks are doing has a significant amount of that code is now open source code. It's ubiquitous. So for that reason alone, you should be paying attention and you should be investing. So that's the stick. That's the, come on, get motivated.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, I think open source is everywhere in financial services, and that being able to grab the attention of the leaders within the organization are going to be able to help with security issues that we were talking about with Log4j. We were able to, or financial institutions were able to be able to answer the needs from a security perspective so quickly because they were modern enough to be able to have open source policies and governance around their activities and contribution and consumption.
Well, let me follow up on that, because I've always looked at security and open source, and granted, I'm not an expert in this area, but I've always looked at it as a double-edged sword, because you have the ability for a large community of people to all look through code for vulnerabilities and fix those vulnerabilities, but you also have code that is out in the open that hackers can look at and figure out how to exploit. It gives them a lot of opportunity to do their dastardly work. How do you guys look? Am I wrong? How do you look at that?
I agree. It's a double-edged sword. That some people have heard of a thing called Linus law from Linus Torvalds, very famous, one of the people that you could arguably say invented open source. And he has a law that's given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. Now, there are some people that agree with that law and some people that disagree, and I don't think it's been scientifically proven. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but one of the things that I find is that ahead of open sourcing some code, you pay particular attention. Typically you pay quite a lot more attention ahead of putting it into the public domain as you would putting it deployed into production. It encourages people to have a lot more attention on security issues and cosmetics as well. So I think there are significant benefits to open sourcing. I agree, it is a double-edged sword. It doesn't necessarily mean it would be more secure just by open sourcing it. But again, getting back to my earlier argument, considering 80% of your code base is open source and you wrote 20% of it, balance of probabilities, the security vulnerabilities are going to be in the code that you didn't write in the first place. So it's a somewhat moot point.
To that point, is there a bright line that you're seeing these days between what banks are willing to use, the types of tools that banks are willing to use that are open source versus what people want to keep proprietary? They want to keep their own IP, their own special sauce, etc. Is there a divide, and where do you see the divide? Hillary, you're nodding.
Yeah, I think the gravitation toward open source for the financial services sector is around common pain points and challenges that all organizations face, particularly with respect to regulatory compliance, liquidity, know your client, anti-money laundering, those types of commonplace operational requirements that all organizations share, that's foundational. Where there may be a tendency to not participate is in differentiation type products that, you know, an organization is putting forward a customer-facing application that is designed to be better than the competitor's application.
And tagging on to that, I would say too, when it is that space where it is proprietary and it's something that you want to keep within in-house, that's where an inner source model, where it's open source principles within your organization are leveraged. And we actually saw within the report that 61% of respondents said that there was more success in their inner source programs when there was an open source program office or an OSPO or an identified OSPO leader.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I look at it is financial services invests a significant amount in technology. They invent their own programming languages. They go that far. Ahead of public cloud, there were investment banks that effectively created public cloud-style deployment environments for themselves. But with open source having become pretty much the ubiquitous model, the value that you derive from inventing your own programming languages, inventing your own cloud-style deployment mechanisms, the value you derive from that has diminished significantly, which is why financial services should be leaning a lot more heavily on open source. There's a lot of things in the past that have been created which are not differentiators. They were potentially necessary at the time, but these days there are many things that you wouldn't consider a differentiator.
A great quote from the report was that one of our interviewees said, we're not going to go and design a container orchestration system. That already exists. We could just go to the repo and get it there. Like, that's not value add, so.
10 years ago, they would have done that.
So it's probably things like trading strategies, product modules, things that are very individual to the particular bank. So one of the points that Gabrielle noted was that GitHub repositories with commits from financial services institutions are up 43% over last year. That seems significant. That's a huge, and Hillary was educating me that this means that the financial institution contributors are highly valued in these projects. So what happened over the past year to make the financial services contributors so much more effective and valued?
I think it goes back to the policies and the governance. They're able to, in understanding how they can contribute, how they can bring that back into their organization. Gab was talking about how there's 20 new OSPO leaders within financial services. And so I would say definitely the governance and really knowing how you can contribute, and not just the policies piece, but it's also the technology piece. And many times we find that developers don't have access to GitHub or Slack or open source tools, and so it's being able to remove those barriers to entry to be able to have more commits.
So the talent was there, they just didn't have the access that now they do, and the leadership, as you said.
Yeah, previously, well, I think it's still happening today in a lot of organizations. Generally speaking, the conversation would go, oh, I found a bug in this open source project, can I fix it? No, not on our network, go home and fix it yourself. And that sounds ridiculous, but that happens quite often, and there are a number of organizations that have thankfully moved beyond that. What I do want to point out is, whilst the delta that we're looking at is positive, the absolute number is still pretty poor. Compare financial services to most other industry sectors, and it's a laggard. And if we weren't operating within a technology, sector, and I consider financial services to be very much a technology sector, that would be excusable, but we're not. Technology is of critical importance to all financial services organizations, so it's a positive step. We need another 2 or 3 years of the same increase to get to where we should be.
Yeah, because I think 75% of companies surveyed let let employees contribute to open source, but only 35% openly encourage open source. So why is that? What's going on there? What's that divide? Is it what you're saying? You can do it at home, but you can't do it at the office?
Well, a lot of it is value proposition. When I think about open source, there's the two sides of it. There's the consumption and there's the contribution. The consumption value proposition is really easy to explain. It's free. Okay, we're done. Whereas the contribution value proposition, that's a little bit more complicated. Why should we spend time fixing bugs or contributing features to this project that doesn't give us an immediate return on investment? So the value proposition is something that is subtle and nuanced. Part of it is a long-term investment in the ecosystem that you fundamentally depend upon, and the other angle is security. If 80% of your code is open source, you probably had better get familiar with that code base. That's your insurance policy. It's not a contract with IBM or some other large supplier. Your security is your own familiarity with the code that you're using.
And the flip side to that is if we prohibit our team members from contributing to open source, we then are waiting for someone else to fix a problem that immediately affects us, and that is going to come. And so you could be proactive in getting involved in contributing to a fix quickly, or you wait for someone else to fix it.
And you mentioned the talent thing as well. There are a growing number of developers who will be asking an employer, what's your position on open source? Because it matters to them.
So you were talking about the value of this in recruiting people. Are college students really coming out like saying, I want to work on open source? And I think it ties in with the finding that fun and enjoyment are still top reasons that people want to get involved in open source. Is it really fun? And is it really drawing young people to companies, the fact that they can work on open source?
Is it fun, Colin?
All eyeballs to the person who is still a developer. Yeah, it is. Developers, engineers, people involved in creating software like to be in a position where their software creates the maximum value possible, keeping their code locked up in closed source, just being used for a single application. There's some value to that, but taking your code, open sourcing it, and seeing a significant number of other organizations, people benefiting from your hard work, that is fun, that is rewarding. Also, contrary to popular belief, developers and engineers are quite sociable. More often than not, they like to be sociable online. They may not like to meet in person, but there is a social element to working in open source that works for the kinds of introverts that like software.
Well, right, and that's why it's open source community. So it's about the people, it's about the contributions, and what you're taking in, but there is a gamification element to it. It's your rank, it's your brand cachet, it's oh, I got to fix this before somebody else did. And so fun is not just for developers, it is for everyone, but I mean it is really bringing in that community element.
And this is something that research shows outside of financial services across many research projects that we have done at the Linux Foundation. Time and time again, we get this data that validates that open source is a highly rewarding, very stimulating environment for people to participate in. So I think it's important from a corporate culture point of view to embrace that and explore how we can make our policies around upstream contribution more accommodating.
All right, that seems to be the takeaway, that it's important, it's valuable, lower these barriers, get rid of these pockets of resistance, and move forward for all the advantages we're talking to. Well, Colin, Hillary, Kara, thank you so much. It was a great panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great panel, and I can totally attest to the, open source is fun. I hope you guys are having fun. Our panel is leaving right now, but but just a quick anecdote. I actually, when I got my first Apache address, I was a kid, and I was probably 19, 20, and I became an Apache committer. That was the biggest, mark of success of my career, early days. And I probably wouldn't stand here right now. So I can totally attest to the fact that, GitHub is the new LinkedIn. Developers want to continue be able to show the outcome of their work, and this is especially true for the new generations. We talked about the value of open source, for technologists, but I wanna reiterate that what we do here is really delivering directly to the business. And so I wanna bring in James and Jane, I guess. James is our Director of Community, Jane is our CTO, and they're gonna talk to you about Project Expo, I believe. Please, welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. Good morning. As Gab said, we're here to talk about something new that we're doing this year for the first time, and hopefully you guys get to partake and give us feedback on what this is. So, thanks to our board chair, Kim Prado, who had this idea back in the summer at the end of our London Expo. She said, look, we really need to see all these projects at work. We need to see what people are doing with this, because we need to stimulate the creative juices and get everybody excited about what the projects can bring for them and where they can contribute and how they can borrow these ideas and do more. And the previous panel talked about the value proposition. And Hillary mentioned that, 10 years ago, and Colin said 10 years ago, somebody would have written a container orchestration platform internally at a bank. Well, some of the components we have here today and some of the use cases that you can see by looking at, going upstairs and looking at the Project Expo are the projects that 10 years from now are going to be so ubiquitous and so obvious within this industry that someone's going to say the same thing about these projects and what the value it brings to the industry. So we'd love to highlight a few of them here tonight, today, and please go upstairs. The project demos will be going on during breaks and during lunch. Please talk to the people who are doing the presentations. Get ideas for yourselves and also give feedback and come back next time with your project demos as well. So we'd like to grow this and get your feedback on this. So first of all, as Dove said, it's a bit of a FDC3 con here today. So we have 4 demos of FDC3 project implementations. So we have Connectify, which is Interop as a cloud service. We have JP Morgan showing market data integration for applications on the desktop. We have City Velocity showing federated contextual search using FDC3. And we have Finsamble and State Street demonstrating multi-asset product delivery platform. So very different companies of different sizes using FDC3 in different ways. Please check them out.
Absolutely, thank you, Jane. And the one thing that I'd like to really iterate is that within the Expo, we've actually got a number of firms who are using these projects. And also around the conference today, you will notice a lot of maintainers and developers of the projects there as well. And so coming to the Expo, it gives you the opportunity to ask the developers, what's going into these projects, but then also ask the consumers of the projects, what value, what tangible value they're getting out of it. And so alongside the projects that Jane just mentioned, we also have Symphony here as well. I don't know if the Symphony team who are giving the Expo are here, if you want to put your hands up. Maybe they're in the room, but upstairs you'll be able to go and talk to the Symphony team about the developer, the workflow developer kit. We also have Regnosis here. I don't know if Regnosis are here to make themselves known. They're going to be demonstrating the CDM, so the common domain model. And also we have the time-based team here who are developing an open source time series database. They're going to be here with one of their consumers of Timebase. So if Timebase are here, feel free to give us a bit of a wave. And then finally, we have the Senecron team who have come in to show what they're contributing into FINOSS at the moment through the Compliance Horizon scanning tool, which allows you to build up a repository of all of the various different compliances happening across the industry landscape and have a single point of reference for that. And so if you want to check out Compliance Horizon scanning, go upstairs, you know, where all of these projects and all of their clients are going to be, and really ask the teams about what they're doing and what tangible value you can get out of the projects.
So, as I said, they're going to be all these demos are going to be happening during the breaks and at lunch. Obviously, the teams are going to be around, so come talk to them at any time. But especially during the breaks, the tables are upstairs, so make your way up and check them out. Thank you, and please give us feedback on this. We're very excited about this.
Thank you both. Super excited about the Project Expos. I think there's a main difference here. These are open source projects. You can go up there. You can talk to them. Nobody's going to try to sell you anything. You can contribute to them. You don't have to just talk. You can, again, tell them a use case, raise an issue. I'm really curious to see if that helps understand the value, not just at technology level, but at business level. And on this note, we've been working for 2 years on an area that is becoming major in FINOSS and in the industry, data modeling and data standardization. Of course, we have a large platform called Legend. A new language is being contributed, Rosetta. We've been hosting pilots. And that has gotten us the attention of some very, very influential consortium in the industry. And on this note, talking about the upcoming contribution of the CDM, the Common Domain Model, I want to bring on stage our next panel. We have Adrian Dale, Head of Regulation for ISLA. We have Georgina Jarrett, Managing Director, Head of FinTech and Digitalization at ICMA, and Alan Milligan, Head of Data and Digital Solution at ISDA, and last but not least, our wonderful moderator and contributor, Fee Ackland, Vice President, Data Engineer at Goldman Sachs. Welcome, folks.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us. I'm super excited. And I hope that will come across, to be here today as we launch the Common Domain Model into FINOSS. I'm Fiona Ackland, as Gab said. I co-lead our data models and governance team at Goldman Sachs. But a large part of my role has actually been working with the industry over the last 6 years. So I was there at the inception of the Common Domain Model as we met in the ISDA offices 6 years ago and really talked in depth about what does the right construct look like? How do we really want to build an industry standard for the industry to use? And we really got down into the details of this idea of building blocks that allows us to really define the entire industry and the financial products that are used within the industry. We don't want to spend too much time talking about what is the CDM, but as a quick summary, it really is an industry standard that defines all the financial products that the financial industry trade. But it goes one step further and also defines how we actually process life cycle events for those trades and positions. Actually, earlier in the year, I was at the ISDA AGM, and the chairman of the CFTC said, we really need clear data definitions and machine-readable code. And I think that's absolutely what the CDM does. And those of you who have been involved in the recent regulatory go-live earlier this week, as which I have been, hopefully you'll start to see how we can use the Common Domain Model to really help drive that. The other big benefit we wanted as we looked and started the CDM was how do we actually capitalize on the new technologies out there, so blockchain and DLT, and hopefully you'll start to see as we talk through over the next 20 minutes how that can be used as well. Before we get started, hopefully you can see on the screen behind us, we have 3 trade associations coming together, so ISDA, ISLA, and ICMA. So perhaps I'll get you all to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, I'm Georgina Jarrett from ICMA. That's the International Capital Markets Association. We work very closely with SIFMA here in the US and look after the debt capital markets industry globally.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Hagan, and I'm representing ISDA this morning, classically the derivatives side of business. My role at ISDA is Head of Data and Digital.
Hello everyone, I'm Adrian Dale. I'm the Head of Regulation, Digital and Market Practices at ISLA, which is the Security Lending Association.
Excellent, so let's get started. Perhaps you could take us through what's excited you most about the journey so far with the CDM, and perhaps we'll go in chronological order. So let's start with you, Alan, at ISDA.
Thank you very much, Fionn. Well, ISDA's been part of the CDM journey for 5 years. It's obviously not new to ISDA, and what's particularly exciting, where we find ourselves now with the CDM, is extending the cross-block coverage of CDM beyond just derivatives, so securities and SEC lending with ISLA, Enigma, and more recently FINOSS. And I think, over the last month, we've seen some very exciting developments. We've seen a real-world industry implementation of digital regulatory reporting. I think there was a press release some weeks ago from a member firm, and that's an end-to-end test now in production for CFTC regulatory reporting. And of course, the press announcement last week from Goldman Sachs. Perhaps you can touch upon that later, Fionn.
Yeah, great. Adrian?
I forgot what the question was there for a second. Luckily I've got notes. So our journey is a little bit different. We started off in 2019 with a series of papers called The Agenda for Change, and we were looking at how the market was evolving and also the evolution of the technology at the same time, and how we can combine those two aspects to improve the way the market operates. The conclusion was that we needed to have, of course, standards, which is probably the most used word you're going to hear today across everything. Looking to what our fellow associations were doing as well, it was quite obvious that that's where we needed the direction we needed to go in. So all of those papers actually are online, and we produced another one just very recently. Actually, it's on our on the ISLA EMEA website, and you can see the work that we've been doing on that and how we've evolved to where we are at the moment. The exciting thing, that was the question, right? So the exciting thing is, so I've been in the industry for a long time, and there's just problem statements coming out all over the place. To address those things, the way that we've been doing things historically is looking at an individual problem statement, solving for it, and then just creating more complexity. So the exciting thing now is where we have standards that we can start actually working to solve all of those things, and that's the future that's, sorry to mention the word future, that's one way to put it.
Excellent. Georgina, how about you?
And last but not least, so ICMA has just very recently, well, not so recently, but over the last couple of years, sort of been working hard to add the bond and repo transaction life cycles to the model. That business, for those of you who know about it, is very, very fragmented and actually hasn't done a lot of whole-scale transformation end-to-end on that trade life cycle. So there's gallons of opportunity. I think excitement and the words modeling and data models are sometimes quite difficult to marry up, but we are genuinely really excited to be part of this initiative, and indeed actually working together as 3 trade associations to simplify and standardize transactions that really are important and, as we all know, create massive cost and complexity that just isn't necessary. So yeah, we're very, very happy to be part of the
Perhaps
gang.
I'm one of those geeks that gets super excited about models.
No, I wasn't
shouldn't actually say
judging
that.
your decision to be excited about models, but...
Excellent.
Sorry, Phil, can I just add a tagline into that? 'Cause it's an important thing of what we're all doing. It's the market building something for the market, which is something that hasn't happened before. There's normally a vendor or a firm doing something. And at the same time that we're doing that, it's called for by the regulators, and their tagline from the European side anyway is, what can we do to help? So that shows that the regulators are really involved, invested in what we're doing as well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the problem statement out there that we need to solve, and I think this absolutely is the solution. Perhaps let's look a little bit into the future then. What do you hope for the CDM over the next couple of years, and perhaps also touch on the impact that should have for the financial industry? Georgina, let's start.
Okay, so I mean, I think it's hugely why we're here, actually. So the associations have built, with a lot of input from all of our vast membership between the three associations, so the banks, the asset managers, the investors, in our case, the issuers, etc., all the technology firms, some of the law firms, and all the other participants in the market. We've built a model that we believe is a pretty good start to show how these transactions work. If we could all rewind the entire evolution of the industry and start again, then maybe we'd have all done it together the same way, and then our regulatory pain would have been a lot less. I think the exciting part now is kind of getting it out into the community, which is what this is all about, and getting people to actually start to use these models and properly embed them. And as a result, more brains makes it better, richer, more effective, more efficient. This is real testing to all of us techies. You know, we're actually going to test it in the real world. So that's the next step from our perspective, and it's great news, I think.
Yeah, great. And Alan, perhaps you've had the longest, so what's the next 6 years?
You know what you're doing.
I think you know the key statement is that, you know, why are we doing CDM and some of its use cases like DRR. And I think one of the key propositions is we're doing it to maximise cost efficiencies through industry mutualisation. You know, this is not theoretical. We demonstrated that in the last year with digital regulatory reporting, DRR. You know, so we've seen and witnessed those, you know, cost efficiencies. You know, and this is a great opportunity with the other trade associations to extend the breadth and depth of CDM beyond just derivatives, you know, to new asset classes.
Great, and Adrian.
So I'm going to talk a bit about those problem statements I mentioned earlier on. So we've got regulations, we've got sustainability, we've got the high cost of operations, which is the point in the panel earlier. I think it was Colin who made a point about why should they be contributing. There's a business case in there because the cost of all of this infrastructure at the moment is enormous. There's a lot of focus on it from firms, and also what's the solution? It's actually to come up with these, to use these standards. And there are too many standards, so there are lots of people creating their own standards at the moment, and actually it needs to happen in a common place, which is the trade associations and of course on FINOSS as well. There's two examples I want to give of the future that we can look at. So a common practice in financial firms is where you have to do a transaction and you have to do lots of other transactions to support it. To get to that point in the future where we can do all of these transactions, they can all be expressed in a single sort of standard. And then that means you get this interoperability between all the platforms internally and externally. And internally, I mean that internally within a firm, they've got a big mess at the moment trying to connect all the different platforms together, and that needs to be solved. And externally, I mean about regulators, for instance, or talking to your counterparts or interacting with exchanges. The other thing is that to get away from this this paradigm we're in at the moment, where there's a regulation, we take SFTR, which is, I know it's a European one, but you've got your the 10C1, which is a similar sort of thing, where the regulator says, I want a list of all these fields, and that actually isn't the right way to do it. It should be the market saying what we want, what our transactions look like, and then the regulator saying, fine, shopping list I'll take out of those things. So the future is that we don't spend 5 years trying to figure out what the regulator wants. We just say this is how it operates and they're satisfied.
Yeah, and I think the other one, and Alan mentioned it a little bit before, and I sort of talked about blockchain and DLT. The other space is how do we start to really use the technology that's out there in the industry. And just 2 weeks ago, I think it was, GS announced the launch of our GS DApp, so the Digital Assets Platform. And we did our first bond issuance on there, on chain. And the interest rate hedge for that actually uses the CDM as the model. And so that's sort of the first implementation for us of the CDM out there on blockchain and DLT. So definitely starting to see this adoption happen. When you've worked on something for 6 years, it's really exciting when it starts to actually sort of come to fruition. So that's really exciting. We've covered a little bit now about the CDM, but we are at an open source conference. So perhaps we should turn and talk a little bit about that. Sort of perhaps take us through why the trade associations have decided to actually open source the common domain model at this stage in its journey. And Adrian, let's start with you.
So trade associations have a sort of more altruistic view, I suppose, in the way that the markets operate. If we take example of what we do as trade associations, we create, apart from looking after legal agreements, we also create best practices or standard operating procedures, I think is the other term that's used. And that, to be a market standard, it needs to be out there for everyone to look at. There's no point in it being ring-fenced. So it made complete sense to go through some process to distribute that more widely, to create that standard, and it's exactly what members were asking for. We've had it time and again over the past decade, people saying, where's that conversation going to happen? It has to happen in an open place so that we can all adopt it. But they need to have the feedback into it as well. So you need to have something where people can be engaged with it, and it's open for everyone to use, and it creates a standard, not just for our members. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
great. Georgina, from your
Yeah, so I mean, these things are never developed for commercial gain. I mean, nothing that the trade associations ever do is on that basis. They are not-for-profit organisations, albeit not, arguably not a charity, but let's call it a charity for the financial services industry. And I think actually we've touched on regulation. It's quite important that we're now being seen as even more important between the industry, so representing the whole industry, in this case 3 industries or 3 parts of our financial services industry, you know, on their behalf, right? So taking this to open source, as I mentioned before, is really getting it to live, getting it to fly. You know, there are 3 of us, even though we're all independent of the, you know, actual market participants themselves, but there are now 3 of us, so we need to put it somewhere where it's independent of all 3 of us as well, right? So, yeah, I think that's the reason. We want it, you know, for open and free use, and that's open source really, isn't it?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Alan?
Yeah, I think, you know, open source offers a kind of neutral third-party source of contributors beyond just the typical participants you might see. I think that brings great value, and it also increases, you know, transparency to the regulatory community globally. And I think, you know, that's very important, having that transparency and, you know, the neutrality of those contributors. There's no, you know, commercial proposition. You know, we're trying to do it, you know, for good cause and good reasons. So I think, you know, that's a core benefit.
Yeah, I think it is that the adoption of a standard is the only way that actually we gain the benefit from it. So for me, and some of the reasons why I love working in the open source community, is it allows us to get more participants and also to therefore accelerate the build of these things as we get more people to actually contribute to it. And hopefully it makes all of you guys feel a bit more responsibility for what's going in there. And so as it starts to get adopted, you've got a little bit more of a confidence in what's on there. So super exciting. I'm sure there's lots of people out here, and I know I've heard a couple of people talking about it earlier on. Perhaps we should just touch on how did you land on actually using FINOSS to open source it. So Alan, I don't know if you want to take that one.
So thank you. 3 trade associations were involved in the selection process. We went through a kind of rigorous formal RFP process with 6 candidates. After an extensive process of scoring, we decided, I think unanimously, in fact it was unanimously, on FINOSS. I think some of the contributing factors were cost efficiency, you know, reputation and legacy, especially with the history of FINOSS and the Linux Foundation, you know, again, and transparency. It's a very, very transparent governance process, which I think helps with the communication with the regulators.
Adrian, anything to add?
I mean, I just love the sound of it. That, you know, FINOSS, a non-profit organisation, we're non-profit organisations. Yes, we had to go through the RFP process because we had to have that transparency to our members, because that's where we're funded from. So that it was great news that we ended up where we are with using FINOSS that, you know, perfectly aligns with our values as well, and which is why, and it's just a great opportunity.
Georgina, anything to add on yours?
Yeah, no, so just really touching on the fact that the associations don't naturally work together actively very often, actually. So this is quite a truly, you know, groundbreaking project, because we all look after our own individual, you know, businesses. But, you know, actually the ability through an RFP to A, do the process properly, but also B, come to a joint, completely agreed, well-governed decision is very, very important. Otherwise, you know, we feel like somebody's made a decision without the other party having full input.
So I'm going to contradict.
Yeah, you're going to contradict.
Just a little bit. So, I mean, especially on regulations where there's no point in, we're very similar, we're not related in terms of the way our markets operate. And where we, especially on something again like regulations, it makes sense for us to align. So we have been aligning on certain regulations to make sure that our best practices are aligned.
Fair adjustment, Adrian.
Right. But it's give and take, though. I mean, sometimes, you know, you come up with better ideas and they get adopted into ours, and vice versa. And we've had that actually with a very large body of trade associations on some of the regulations that are going through at the moment. There's like 10, 15 of us get together globally, and we agree what the standards should be just because it makes sense to do it like that, not for any nefarious reasons.
No.
And I think it's a big thank you, if I can do it on behalf of the financial industry, that you're collaborating together to bring this into one place. So I think that's great. If you're interested in hearing more, I know we've touched on little bits here, but there's so much more going on today about the CDM. You've heard a little bit about it. I know there's a session that will look at the history of it, so if you're interested in what happened over the last 6 years, there's a session happening on that. There's also going to be showcases of how it's being used in the industry. You've heard from a couple of us, but actually there are other people in the community that are doing it, so please go and find that session as well. Perhaps a little shameless plug from me. So my role within FINOSS is also as co-chair of the Financial Objects SIG. And over the last couple of years, we have been contributing to the CDMs through that SIG, but we have great ambitions of what more we can do now that sort of this launch is happening. And so if you're interested in anything we've spoken about, please do come and find me, or my co-chair Ian is somewhere around in the room, at the back over there. Please do come and find us. We would love to hear how you'd like to get involved or how you'd want to see this sort of move forward over the coming years. So please do come and get in touch. Perhaps to finish us off, because we've spoken about quite a few things, can you each give 3 words that you want people to take away from this session today and as they go and sort of enjoy the day? Georgina.
Okay, so the first word, having been corrected by Adrian, is collaboration. But in all seriousness, it's all about collaboration, us and the whole of the FINOSS community. Foundational, and then embed and deploy. That's 4, but they're the same. So embed and deploy.
Excellent. Adrian.
So I'm going to be cheeky and I'm going to
He's
try
going to correct
twice.
me again, isn't he?
So my first attempt is adopt our CDM. That's an obvious one. That's obviously to financial firms and to regulators as well. And then we're going to use some sort of standard sort of terms like standards, future, and efficiency.
Great. And Alan, to finish us off.
I think I've touched upon it, mutualization of effort, which also ultimately means cost. Several words there, that's not quite one, but hopefully that suffices. Industry standardization, I think, is a key part of the remit of trade associations, and machine executable interpretation.
That was loads of words.
I've cheated.
That's why we put him at the end. Excellent. Well, thank you so much to our esteemed panel. Thank you for being here, and hopefully you can all see and we'll get involved throughout the day. Thank you.
Fiona.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good job as usual. Wow. I'm, again, thinking about a few years ago, I wasn't expecting this would move so quick. But I think one thing that I want to call out here is, back to what I was saying before, someone made a joke about how data modeling cannot be fun or not have it in the same word. But I think what I want to point out is we are bringing to this community not just developers. We are bringing a very diverse set of contributors to this community. And so whether you're a data modeler or a business analyst, we have a way to allow you to work in the open and, share some of that fun. For our next presenter, I would like to bring on stage Julian Moffett. Julian is the field CTO of financial services at EnterpriseDB. Julian will discuss the rise of open source in financial services companies. Welcome on stage, Julian.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gabe. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to actually be in a room of people for a change. That's a lot of fun. Thanks to the organizers, to Gabe and the whole team for just an opportunity to share a few words with you guys. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on how to run what we call your favorite open source database, which is Postgres at enterprise scale. Thank you. I was looking for the clicker. I appreciate it.
Thanks for buying that.
Good. Okay. So just very briefly about me. So I joined EDB just about a year ago. Prior to that, I worked in the industry for many, many years. I worked in UBS for a long, long time. Done a whole bunch of roles in tech over that period of time, and then ended up in the database space, setting an open source agenda and introducing Postgres to my previous employer, and then building out kind of private and public cloud implementations of that database. Made lots of mistakes along the way, learned lots of things, hopefully some things that we can share with you guys as we go through the course of the day. Who is EDB? EDB is Enterprise Database. The short version of EDB is we are to Postgres what Red Hat is to Linux. So we are the single largest contributor to the open source project, both from a code perspective, but also just from a community perspective. Our teams run Postgres user groups all over the world. We do lots of education events. Our goal in life is to expand the footprint of Postgres, and for financial services companies to enable folks to do that at scale, to do that efficiently, reliably, and securely. So Postgres support is our business. That's what we do. We're the guys you call whenever things go bang in the middle of the night. In that pursuit of enabling kind of larger companies and financial services companies to run Postgres at true enterprise levels, we have a whole kind of ecosystem of tools, some open source, some proprietary, that we can then deploy along with decades of expertise in Postgres to help you guys get to the next level. So the rise of open source software is pretty obvious, I think, to everyone in this room. That's not something that's new. But what is perhaps interesting for you guys is what we've identified is we're pretty much at a tipping point right now where the usage of open source databases is just about superseding the use of kind of more traditional proprietary databases, which is very exciting for us as a Postgres provider. Postgres always comes out as kind of up in the top in terms of most wanted, most loved database. I think there's a number of different reasons for that. Cost is certainly one. I think Gabe mentioned it earlier on. Cost is one. Talent, attraction, and retention is another one we see a lot with a lot of our customers. People are interested to kind of leverage some of the newer tech. You can guarantee that anyone that's just come out of college hasn't been developing on an Oracle or a Sybase or DB2. They've been working on open source technology, so that's almost second nature to folks. The other big thing that I think attracts people to Postgres is portability. So breaking that kind of vendor lock-in, giving yourselves the flexibility to optimize your commercial agreement, optimize the level of technical expertise you get from a provider. And if you decide to switch from one to the other, it's largely a paper exercise, which is significantly different if you're on a proprietary database and you want to move somewhere. You're typically going to impact your entire application estate and require lots of extra development work. So with that, while we all love Postgres, and Postgres is great, spoiler alert, it's not that easy just to run vanilla Postgres at enterprise scale in financial services institutions. So we typically look at it from four angles. Reliability is key. So I can guarantee most folks in this room are going to be running in multiple locations at once, multiple data centers, availability zones, probably cross-region. You're going to need some degree of high availability. So one of the things that's really important is make sure you understand what your SLAs are. Make sure that you've got technical solutions to manage things like automated failover whenever things break. We have a whole bunch of tools. That's our business. We could talk about those offline. I won't bore you with the details just now. Performance, also critical. So I think there's a perception around Postgres that Postgres is just for development or low-tier applications. I have run it very successfully for mission-critical applications. But to do that, you need to understand the ecosystem that you're running your database in. You need to understand how to get the best out of your compute and storage infrastructure. So my advice there would be work with a partner who's willing to really understand your requirements and help you optimize that implementation. Scalability, again, my previous life, we ran an estate of around 15,000 databases. There is simply no way that you can deploy those manually and manage those manually. So orchestration and automation is absolutely critical. You need to be able to deploy these things repeatably, reliably. You don't want to be in the situation where it worked in UAT and it doesn't work in prod, and it's because the system administrator configured something different in the production instance. So really think about building automation, designing patterns that map to your SLAs, your recovery time objectives, etc., and then automate the hell out of those at the back end. That's the real key that we find for large-scale deployments. Other thing sounds very obvious, but make sure you've got monitoring in place. You don't want your application teams to call you and say, hey, is my database down? You need to be ahead of that. You need to be proactive in that. You need to be in front of those things and making sure that you've got full visibility of your state. So we talked about Log4j before. So we all were running around like headless chickens this time last year. on Log4j. You need the ability to have a view across your estate and understand, okay, well, I'm running a version 1.1 on these 1,000 databases. I need to upgrade those to 1.5 or whatever it happens to be. So having those kind of tools that aren't automatically part of the open source stack is important. I think we find it's important to help our customers be able to operate at the scale that they would like to. Security. Financial services, no big surprise. This is kind of front and center. Everything from encryption, so encryption in transit to encryption at rest, those are critical. Data access is another key one. So understanding who's got access, having kind of control over your role-based access control models, being granular about who gets to see data, so exposure data on a need-to-know basis. Those are things that we find kind of repeatably that are very important to financial services institutions. And equally so, just on the right-hand side, I listed a bunch of those. So for any of you guys that operate in multinational environments, I can guarantee you will have your own internal control framework, which is the amalgam of the multiple regulators that I'm sure you're facing off to. So things like strong authentication requirements, central identity management, backup and restore, backup integrity checking, disaster recovery checking, all of these types of things are key things that we understand. And again, if you want to deploy an open source database at scale, those are the kind of things you need to be aware of. You need to be building a kind of holistic database solution. So I think that my lasting message for the day is you probably, depending where you are on the Postgres journey, you're either beginning or you're running in dev and you want to scale up into a production environment, or you want to move from lower tiered applications to mission critical applications. You probably have a multitude of questions. My overriding message is find a partner, find someone to work with who's done this before. So in my previous life, we thought we were super smart and thought we could build everything ourselves, which we did, but it took us a long, long time to do it. So if I was doing it over again, I would absolutely go and take a shortcut and find the partner who knows what they're doing. Find someone who's willing to look at your database solution as more than just a database engine. Look at it as understanding the holistic database solution. So how do you make your database available to your developers? How do you improve their agility by improving provisioning times, ease of deployment, etc.? How do you integrate with your identity and access management systems? How do you get the best out of your compute stack? Make sure you've got backup and monitoring, obviously. Make sure you train your operations staff. I've fallen into that trap where we built the most shiniest, beautiful implementation. I think we had provisioning down to like 4 minutes from click of a button to running database. But we didn't train our operations staff well enough. So the problem was that when something went bang in the night, our ops guys didn't know the runbooks, they didn't know how to fix things, and as a result, our service got a bad reputation. So easily remediable. There's lots of companies who can help with training. We try to help with that stuff as well, of course, but that's a key one that isn't perhaps obvious, but something that we find very important. And then naturally, the last one, make sure you've got some kind of patching and upgrade framework. We are, as an industry, probably not well renowned for keeping on top of our end of life of software versions. So that's something I always encourage customers to kind of build in from the beginning. So yeah, we are here all day. We are just in the hallway outside. If anybody's got any additional questions, I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys in a little bit or a lot more detail. But my message is, we love Postgres. Postgres is the lifeblood of our company. We're trying to promote Postgres. But please get a partner, work with people who really know what they're doing to help you kind of move that forward and do that efficiently and safely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
So, we are almost at the end of the keynotes. Before I introduce our last keynote, there's one of the big conundrums every time I stand up on stage in this conference, in this context, is like, do I dress up like, a proper Wall Street person, or, I'm based in California, we don't really know what a suit is there on the West Coast, and I'm trying to change this industry to make them more open. Maybe I should wear a hoodie. And I always keep going back and forth between that. And so today I decided to actually do both. So I will in order to introduce our last presenter, wear our beloved Linux Foundation. I mean, it's not a hoodie, but it makes me a little bit more developer friendly, and I hope you also understand that this is something that you should be free to do in this conference. But the reason why I'm doing that is that our last speaker is the headline from what we call our OpenJS in Finance track. For those of you who are not familiar with OpenJS, it is one of our sisters foundations. It hosts projects that this industry and most industries are based on, like Node or Electron. You've heard it a few times by now. And so I'm super excited for all the developer folks here, the JavaScript developers, to bring in Sarah Chips as our last keynote. Sarah is a senior engineer, flagship engineer at LinkedIn, and she's an OpenJS Foundation board member. So Sarah, today we'll talk about governance models that keep the engine of open source going. Sarah, welcome on stage.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wore my suit today. So how's everyone doing? Great to see. Oh, I see some great familiar faces. Hey, everyone. How's it going? I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the bureaucracy in open source. I feel like a finance conference bureaucracy might be interesting, or you might want to leave it at work. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I want to learn a little bit about the folks in the audience and your experience with open source. I want to talk about what we see in open source projects and the type of entropy we see as projects grow and go on, how to make an open source project sustainable, and then how as an individual to get involved. So as many people here, I'm sure I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I've seen the world of people only use proprietary software. We build it here, we don't use it, to the world of everyone uses open source. There isn't a company out there who isn't using open source libraries. Like mentioned before, I work at LinkedIn helping to run the front-end infrastructure for LinkedIn.com. I co-founded an organization called Girl Develop It, which was kind of not my personal first entry into open source, but my first open source project that I started from the beginning. And what Girl Develop It does is it teaches adult women how to code. Girl Develop It has taught over 100,000 women how to code in in-person classes here in the US. All of our curriculum is open source. So anything that you want to learn, you can go to Girl Develop It's GitHub, you can see all the curriculum, you can contribute to it, and it's been flourishing for about 10 years now. I've been on the board of the .NET Foundation, and now I am on the board of OpenJS, which we'll talk about a little bit more here. I've also contributed to open source projects, know a lot of folks that have started open source projects, so I feel like I have a unique view into the industry for a long time. So folks here, who here has, if you use open source in your day job, raise your hand. Is that going to be everyone? Okay, great. I just wanted everyone to raise their hand. That's what I was doing. Okay, great. I saw about 80% of you put your hand up. Have you contributed to an open source project? Raise your hand if you contributed. Okay, great. That was about 15% of folks I see with their hands up. If you started an open source project, let's see hands. Oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to get 7%. None of these are based in science. It's just I'm just eyeballing it. Okay, so there's a handful of you who've started your own open source projects. That's neat. Some of this may be not new to you as you think about how to make your open source project sustainable. So one thing that we've seen since the beginning, so the world of open source is wonderful and magical, and the idea is people build things and everyone uses them. And it is great, and people learn from each other, and they can build off of what other people build, and it's completely open. And that was the promise of the beginning of open source, which is something that personally got me really excited. But what we've seen over the past 20 years as projects mature and grow is something that can be a bit of predictable entropy that we see when a project starts. So this is what you see, I've seen every time. So people have an idea, they're so excited, they're getting started, they're home coding, they're spending their nights and weekends, they're like, people are going to love this, this is going to be great. It takes a long time. They're like, oh man, I thought I could do this in the weekend. It's a holiday. Maybe I'll get it done on the holiday. It takes a year and a half after all. And they're like, I can't wait to get there. And then you get to the part where it's 90% done and you have 90% to go. You can't show anyone. You are working hard and you're like, do I even finish this? A lot of projects die here, to be honest, where people are like, actually, I only did have a couple weekends. I'm not really that into this and I don't even know if people are going to be using it. But often, people make it through. They release their open source project. Very exciting. That feels good. There's a high you get just from getting it out there in the world and being able to step away from your computer and be like, okay, people are looking at what I built. This feels good. This is nice. Then no one uses it. No one cares. No one thinks what you did is great. No one is really excited about you. No one's going to use it. You could have built the most brilliant thing, but no one knows about it, so it really doesn't matter. And that's sad. Unfortunately, often, when the opposite happens, that is also sad. Because now you have an open source project, people love it. They're using it at their day jobs. All of a sudden, you need to think about security. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of security for Fortune 500. This is a weekend. I have no idea what they need. People are adding issues to your GitHub repository. People are adding 20 issues and you're like, I'm one person, I did this to be nice. I wanted to build something to be nice to the community and now people are demanding things of me. I don't work for them. This is annoying. Sometimes you find collaborators, which is wonderful, people that work with you, and often this can be healthy for a while, but what ended up happening to a lot of people that build open source that I've spoken to is after they start to hate their project. They're like, I wish I never built this. This is annoying. People are mad at me. If I spend my weekend with my family, I feel guilty because there's someone in Idaho with a bug that is stopping their business from being productive. And that's really tough. And that's where a lot of project owners get stuck. And when I see them get there, I see a few solutions present themselves. So where does this code go to be sustainable? So you've built something amazing, someone's built something amazing, people are using it. What happens now? Sometimes it dies. I've seen projects, people just say, listen, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to move forward. This is the end of my project. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Feel free to fork my GitHub. I'm not going to maintain it. No longer maintaining this project. And that is a fine response. Some people burn it to the ground. I've seen people say, last year there was a project where the maintainer started putting ads in the CLI to make money. People did not like that. People say, I'm tired of you making money off me. Send me money. If you haven't sent me money, then don't use this. I'm deleting it. And then all of a sudden, there's code in production that doesn't work because a library with millions of users, the owner was like, absolutely forget this. Another model, and often people think of this early, and when I see people think of this early, it's often people that are veterans to the industry because they've seen this happen. People get funded. They go to VCs. They get venture funding, or they get acquired by a big company. We've seen recently Remix was picked up by Shopify. That's really neat. What can happen in these big companies is that they have the revenue, they can pay engineers, engineers can work on the project. That's great. That's a really good symbiotic relationship. People can have paychecks. That's nice. Like it's a lot nicer to be helping people with their issues when you're getting paid for it. We've seen Dino and NPM both raise money as bastions in JavaScript, and that helps them keep going. Something that can happen here is anything else, you can run out of money. That happens, and in that case, you have to make a decision, where do I go with my project from here? Another thing is people try to get sponsorship from individuals. So there are things like Open Collective. GitHub allows you to sponsor projects, send them money monthly. If it's a project that you care about, a maintainer that you care about, that's great. This can be hard, right? Because it sounds really good, but how many people need to give you $20 a month in order to keep your day, like leave your day job and focus on your project? And then how many people need to give you $20 a month in order for more than one person to quit their day job and work on their project? So I think this model works, and I absolutely, I support some contributors in GitHub right now, but this is also difficult. And then the fourth option, which I believe is the best one, biased, but is to join a foundation. There's the Cloud Computing Foundation, .NET, OpenJS, the Apache Foundation. There's a lot out there, a lot of foundations out there that are funded by grants and sponsors that can help you with your project. And there's some reasons why I believe this is the best model. Open source developers are developers. And I don't know if you've met a developer before, but they're not always the best marketers, or they're not always very good at sales, or their legal mind isn't the sharpest. When you are a developer, your skill set is writing code, and that's amazing and incredible, but often when you have a successful project, you need more than just to write code. And what a foundation can offer you is those skill sets and those resources so you don't have to think about it. So for resources, foundations have their own marketing team that can work with you. And marketing is a great way to attract sponsors, to host events, to attract contributors. People will hear about your project, it's exciting, and foundations have their own budget to do that. Legal is huge, especially when it comes to things like security issues, IP, trademark. These are all things that successful open source projects run into. And when you just want to code on the weekends, this isn't something that you think about. And then someone comes and is suing you. There are people that just like sue open source projects all the time. Someone comes and sues you, and you're like, why? I literally just wanted to do something nice for the community, and now I have a lawsuit on my hands. What do I do? Additionally, recruiting contributors can be difficult, especially folks that are willing to work on the issues that maybe aren't so interesting and exciting. And so being part of a foundation, having that marketing, having that support, the foundation leaders can help you identify where your project lacks and support people that come and can help you work on it, as well as getting sponsorships. Foundations work directly with big companies that want to put money into open source, that think about, we're using all these libraries, how do we support? The foundations come along and they say, great, become a part of this foundation, here's how much we need from you a year, we'll work with you on the board. And that enables a lot of these projects to get sponsorship from the big companies. And then security audits and things like that. Those are very important. And often something as an open source owner you can't afford, or you don't have time for, or isn't your specialty. And foundations can think holistically with the whole community in mind. Code of conduct enforcement, things like that. Again, you're not HR. You're not a person that thinks of how do I have difficult conversations with people that are toxic in my community? And foundations are a great way to help with that. So as a person, how, why, where should you get involved? If this is at all interesting to you, helping open source in ways that might not just be coding, this is how I got started. So there's so many different technologies to work with, right? Are you a Java developer? Do you like JavaScript, databases? Anything that you can think of, there's an open source version of it in technology. And you can get involved in it. There's a project out there. So the projects that you use every day that you love, they need help. I promise you, none of them are turning people away. None of them are like, we're good, thanks. Like, people are looking for help. And you can focus on what brings you energy. And that's what really brought me to the bureaucracy of open source, because for me, I don't love bureaucracy. That's not me as a person. But what I learned, so I've been doing this, like I said, for 20 years. 10 of that has been as an IC, 10 of it as a manager. And what I've learned as an engineering manager is that I love helping to scale people systems. I love enabling engineers to be their best selves at work and helping them be successful, because that is an amazing system to optimize and be a part of. And thinking about open source, I think about, sure, I can identify one project, get involved and help them, but what if I was able to help multiple projects and think about the future of open source? And that's how I got involved in things like the board of OpenJS and the .NET Foundation, as well as the other things that I've done. You can get involved in many ways. People are looking for this kind of help. Documentation, sponsorships. If you have friends at lots of companies, they want to talk to them. That's helpful. I feel like the great part of the bureaucracy of open source is how you can affect an entire community and bring value to the things that you love every day, multiple things that you love every day. Open source communities have things like standards boards. How do we write our code? Different working groups to optimize things. Helping them identify needs is super valuable. And helping to think about adjusting governance, right? If you've worked in engineering leadership, you know how sensitive these conversations can be, how to approach difficult conversations, how to identify needs within an organization. This is something that is needed in all of open source. So how do you get started? So I like to always think about chop wood and carry water, right? You don't show up, like I see leaders all the time that show up on day one and they say, hello, I'm ready to lead you, you're welcome. And people are like, okay, great, well, that's not what we're looking for. And so I find the best way is to get your hands dirty and get involved. And most projects, they're on GitHub. They will have instructions on how to get involved. They will tell you what different groups there are, when they meet, when to show up. And showing up is it. Showing up is free. Go to a meeting. All these groups have periodic meetings. Sometimes they have them on YouTube or Twitch. You can watch and see what you're getting into. It makes it easy. Again, you can help them with coding or documentation. There's all kinds of things these projects need. So shameless plug, if you're looking to get involved, if this is something that is exciting for you, OpenJS is always looking for partnership. On Tuesdays, we have a cross-project council. We meet on Zoom. There's people from across the world, and the things that we talk about are how do we best support the projects like Node and Electron and jQuery, and think about the resources they'll need in the future, and help to get the word out about their needs, and think about how to support a big community of JavaScript developers. There's also a standards group. We do event planning as well. OpenJS is a big conference every year. It's really easy to get involved. Basically, you just need to show up. And then most of our projects have technical steering committees that don't just go in and code, but they think about the future of the technology, where it needs to go, where's the industry going, and how do we enable our maintainers to think with the future in mind. And then, as always, developers are welcome. So thanks all, thanks for coming. I hope this was 20 minutes that got you more interested in open source and being involved in governance. I'm here for a while, and have a great conference.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was fascinating, and I hope that helps understand the role that we play as a foundation. That brings us to a close for our morning programming. Breakout sessions will start at 11:15. Jane will have a fireside chat with Angel Diaz from Discover around lunch, and then later today I'll meet with the head of open source of Goldman Sachs, Rohan Deshpande, and then please stay for the closing awards and the booth crawl. And I want to leave you with one thing. It's not surprising that we're seeing open source growing so fast, adding so many members in this industry. Even in a period of economic downturn, open source tends to be counter-cyclical. This is the time to mutualize and get your efficiencies out of open source. And as I think Sarah said it really well, don't see yourself just as an attendee. Have an opinion, chop wood and carry water. Let us know what we can do to make this community even more impactful. Thanks, welcome, and have a great day.
Yeah, hello friends again. So I'm just trying to figure out what to do next. So I just need to do some more posts, share some love, and then I'll have my breakfast, 4 o'clock p.m. breakfast, because well, that's what happens, because it's the hardest stuff in open source. The first hardest stuff is to start, but even harder is to stop. I love open source. Okay, friends, I really need to have some food, please. Oh my god. Gosh. I love you guys. Sorry, I love you, friends, fellows. Guys, it's not inclusive, and the more I do open source, the more I understand how important it is to be inclusive. Because I cannot lose a single person of here. Because that's not right. We need everybody, and people who will get affected by me being not including, they are very often they'll be extremely valuable to the community. Extremely. Like just yesterday, I was like talking to somebody, and because they didn't have somebody diverse in the team, so they have a situation when there was a party or something, and they made some pictures, and then the community complained of them being not diverse, because like in the IT company there were only 3 ladies, and they're like, oh, we don't know what to do because we're like trying to be diverse, but then people say that we are not diverse. And I told them that, look, you missed such an amazing opportunity. What you should have done, you should have said that, well, reality is as it is, so we cannot hire half female developers team, like if somebody still thinks that going for numbers is a good idea, because I would prefer going to make sure that people can choose whatever they want, because maybe she doesn't want to be a developer, maybe she's a CTO, so why on earth I would put somebody who is a brilliant CTO or to be just a developer? But anyway, I told them that you messed up such a beautiful opportunity. You could have asked these ladies, let's say there are 2, let's say a small percentage in the company, you could have interviewed them. How on earth did you manage in this country where the female developers are not that many, and especially in this job, which is software development, we are not nearly enough female developers, and that actually that's awful beyond what you can think, because like a lot of very high quality learning jobs, they start with being a developer or test engineer. But so I thought that interview them, ask them how did they do it, and then make it visible, so other girls will know that it is normal to be a CTO, it is normal to be a chief lawyer in the company, this is normal to be a chief architect, this is normal to create your own startup. So that's what they should have done, but because their team was not diverse, then they messed up. They could have created so much from this opportunity, and they messed up. That's why you need a DevRel, and better your DevRel be a diverse person, really, because DevRel connects all the roles. So DevRel should understand how everybody feels, and DevRel should be able to go and say that, look, I don't know how you feel, but tell me, I will try to understand, and then we work together. Yeah. Okay. That's just me complaining about actually important stuff. But friends, as you know, I'm employed. It's good. So currently I'm on leave, which is due to my health. But we'll see what we can do. So I'm right now looking at this stuff and the schedule, right? Here. Okay. And here. So okay. So where are we? This is in UTC, which is London time. Oh, I have a cashback something. Oh yeah. Okay, whatever. Let me see how much you see. Good stuff. So I will remove this annoying thing. This coffee is good. By the way, it's a recipe for, well, not a disaster. You make a coffee, 1 liter of it, with your daily coffee dose, okay? And then you take 1 liter of water, and then you dilute in a nice cup. It should be orange. That's the rule. Cups must be orange because t-shirts must be orange. Just challenge me on it, but well, orange is the new yellow. Yeah. I hope I didn't insult anybody. If I did, please let me know. I've just heard some things about this stuff, and yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so currently right now it's 16:14, so we're here Oh, so there's a coffee break. Oh, hey, so what we need to do now is to find this live thing again. And somewhere, yeah, live stream is here. Okay. Okay. They had this live stream here. This is so inconvenient. Like I go to live stream and I end up here. Linux Foundation, please hire somebody. You are such an amazing people, but this kind, it kills me. Like, I've just filled this form. I just filled it. How many times do I need? I'm autistic. I need like a button which would take me to the live stream, please, friends. Really. This is live stream access page from my email, and we get back to the same page, don't we? Okay, so hopefully that will change. Hopefully this is the live stream. Like if I was doing it, I would say that I would put an hour here, a clock, which will say like soon we will return. Okay, because now what's coming now? How do I know? How do I know? So we have a schedule, right? So I don't know. Maybe a coffee break will end and real life use cases that will start, which would be absolutely terrific and beautiful. On this stuff. So these are keynote sessions. I don't know if this one will be live streamed. I don't know what is FDC3. So let's say I want to participate in this one, okay? Where is the link? Linux Foundation, where's my link? Or does it say that, like, how do I join anyway? Breathe. I don't know, maybe it's like at the end of the day. How do I know? Does it say end? I don't have, I'm sure you've posted it somewhere. I'm sure there's a rules page. I really don't have half a day to read all the small font. Why should I be doing that if instead I could go to YouTube, Bilal Khan, okay? DevOps, not somebody thinking like, why would I? Okay. So yeah, that's the person I actually should be looking, because Bilal did it easy for me to follow. Like, hire Bilal, like seriously, Linux Foundation, hire Bilal and tell them that people have problems coming to our streams, and also he has so little resources, and it's so much easier to achieve his access his resources than yours. Yeah, I will assume that you have finished your stream, because this is not serious. I mean, your stream is so great, but the organization has so much space for improvement. This is like... So which one of them might be on stream? So here's some checkbox which apparently has to help me, right? So let's assume that it's whole one that you're streaming from. Although, how would I know? But well, assume. Let's assume. You know what? I'm closing my video, and yeah, I will just leave this page here. Yeah, I'll leave the link to them. I'll leave the link to them somehow, like this. I hope that will be enough. Just hire somebody like Bilal. I'll ask somebody like myself to find some time. I'll take a vacation and I'll help you, friends. this is amazing content, but you only focus on you only focus on, not even on states, you only focus on New York. There's like few hundred millions of people who want to see this, and you miss them. Few hundred millions. Well, 10 millions easy, just from India alone. Whatever. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, I'm a bit toxic. To be honest, you're doing a great job. It's very easy to criticize somebody who is doing something, then criticizing somebody who is not doing something. So, on a serious note, Linux Foundation, you rock. You're amazing friends and you support community so much. And yes, I'm complaining about some things, but well, we'll get it sorted, okay? And see you. And finally, it's breakfast time. So let me have my breakfast, and hopefully I will understand how to find any of your streams today if they are still happening. Or maybe they were, I remember they were pre-recorded events, right? They were pre-recorded events. I'll find your pre-recorded events as well. So I will understand, when I'm back, I will understand what is the state today with your streams, and I will understand what is the pre-recorded events, if there was any, okay? And yeah, stay strong, live long and prosper, friends. Talk to you later. Okay, I will just keep the page on, but yeah, but then actually we can, no, I will keep the picture on, okay? And that's window capture, and that's this thing. Well, hello friends, I am back, and that was enough time for the Linux Software Foundation to fix the stream, right? Alright, now, yeah, let me turn on my camera if it works, you never know. Yeah, looks like working there. So let's quickly check if if this stuff is working. And so yeah, we have the stream here. We have all this amazing stuff. And of course, there's no button as it wasn't. I'm just not understanding. Is this still a thing or is it not a thing? And then because we have other things to do today, let's see. New York live stream access. So that's live stream access page. Of course, it's useless. For the stuff I need, it's useless. So yeah, I think it's only about Keynote, right? Keynote schedule. So let's assume it's only for Keynote, okay? So maybe one day. So, okay, I will work out on my schedule for the year. And I will plan in advance so I can visit more events and deliver more value for you friends. But for now, we have what we have, okay? I have messed up, as I do so often, and because I'm human and my resources are limited, this stuff I'm doing right now, it's in my free time. So, but what I had in the email, there was some pre-recorded content, and what we'll do, we'll watch this stuff. It's on YouTube, so we'll just watch it. Oh, okay. And you see, that's the real problem actually here. So, an absolutely amazing Linux Foundation. They're amazing, I love them. So they create this amazing content. How many likes it has? It's been there for 5 days. So we're going to write a post about it now. Because, really, let's help them. So, that's interesting. What else did they have for us? This is good. Okay. And what else did they have? Yeah, they actually have quite a lot. So what I will do, I will go through all of these things. Oh my god, this is a lot. This is a gold mine. Oh, yeah, of course. Hi, Justin. Long time no see. So what I will do, I will review all of them, or at least most of them. Okay? I cannot, no hard promises, it's my hobby. And, well, I need to balance between burning out and bringing help to you, friends. So maybe I will, I need to find a way to earn from all this stuff, so I can, buy bread and water. So I can still deliver to you, but leave it with me, I'll find a way. So, yeah. Okay, we'll finish this stuff, because I don't think it's going anywhere. And thank you very much to everybody who was here, and see you later. I'll just have a few sips of coffee. Coffee is important. And I'll call some of my relatives and have some good vibes, and then I will continue working for community. Most probably it will be exercism coding, exercism IO. So this stuff. So I'll most probably be working on this stuff, okay? In the Golang because I haven't coded Golang for so long, I miss it. Well, it's not exactly so, but it's a great fun, okay? It will be great fun because I will be doing it. So you see this one? Hello world has been completed, I'll fix it, okay? And I'll show others how to do it, okay? So see you friends, live long and prosper, and see you later. See you later, alligator. Okay, so yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2,